Hello YouTube and welcome to the Awesome Blackness channel, or ABC for short. My name is Mighty, and on this platform, I'm going to explore the awesomeness of our black people. That's right, whether you're big or small, celebrity or civilian, anywhere in the world, if you're awesome, you're featured here. And it's time to drop another nugget.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so in my last 3 videos, I undertook the challenge of explaining the awesomeness of demonstrative, albeit nuanced, antagonists. Here, the job is a little easier, as I am now going to talk about a simple and archetypal good guy. Well, depends on how you look at it. But before I do, I have to set you up real slow because I'm taking you back to the early aughts for this one. Starting first on October 26th, 2000. Yes, with the fighting over resources long in the rearview mirror after yet another manufactured scare on the populace, Sony Computer Entertainment released its MIB level, forget what just happened and become complacent again, machine in the Western market, the PlayStation 2. Lines outside of retailers pre-release told of its wild popularity and would go on to demonstrate the system eventually becoming the best-selling video game console of all time, with over 155 million units sold worldwide. Additionally, it boasted in excess of 3,800 game titles in their library, totaling 1.5 billion copies sold. Suffice to say, the PS2 undoubtedly left an indelible mark in the annals of history and upon launch, so much so regarding the latter that it ultimately served as the death blow for one of its only real competition at the time, the Sega Dreamcast, whom just 18 months after its Western release would be discontinued, leaving Sony as the sole player for several months before Nintendo and Microsoft got into the race with their systems, the GameCube and Xbox respectively. Of all the features the system offered at the time, the most attractive was its backwards compatibility with its predecessor, the OG PlayStation, whom would itself eventually bring about 3,000 game titles of its own to the table, among other achievements. Even with the release of its successor, the PlayStation 3, in late 2006, the PS2 remained popular well into the 7th generation of consoles and continued to be produced in various pared-down iterations, a common practice with the company, to also include, strangely enough, a system-integrated 22-inch television. It wasn't until 2013 when Sony finally announced its wildly popular system had been discontinued after over 12 years of production, marking it as one of the longest lifespans of a video game console. As an aside, even despite the announcement, new games continued to be produced for it until the end of that year. However, during the system's tenure, of the thousands of games produced, our focus now turns to the game containing the awesome blackness therein. Released in September 2005 for the PS2 and Xbox, Fahrenheit, entitled Indigo Prophecy in North America, is an action-adventure game developed by Quantic Dream and published by Atari Inc., going on to sell over 1 million copies. The game was chiefly praised for its story, characters, voice acting, a legit feat for titles of that era.
You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
And music.
You want to put some music on? I feel like dancing.
A remastered version of this cult classic was released for Windows, Android, iOS, Linux, and Mac OS in 2015 and on the PlayStation 4 in 2016. Mostly contextual-based gameplay, Indigo Prophecy is essentially an interactive drama, a self-Christian genre adopted by its creator, David Cage, where you essentially play out sequences and various lines of dialogue based on on-screen cues. Apparently this type of game style worked for the developer based on the previously mentioned sales figures, among other awards and favorable reviews it also received. In fact, Quantic Dream would go on to release subsequent titles in the same vein: Heavy Rain, Beyond, Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human. I've played all but Detroit, but I feel as though I'll be getting to it soon enough, as a Quantic Dream collection containing the latter trio has been produced for the PS4. Oh yeah, and that brings me to a little more good news. Now, if you remember in my video on Marlene, I had mentioned that I had to sell my PS4 during the struggle of 15. Well, in light of the abundance of 20, I have been able to purchase another one. Yep, right before the release of PS5 apparently. I went to Target on a whim and picked up the slim model version and a couple of games to tide me over, one of which was God of War. And above all, I'm loving every moment of Christopher Judge's performance. Back to Indigo Prophecy though. The plot of this game follows unintentional antagonist Lucas Kane, a man who commits murder while supernaturally possessed, and the two police detectives investigating the case. Of the two, Tyler Miles is the subject of this video. Born on the 17th of September in 1985, Tyler is from the borough of the Bronx, New York. He has 3 brothers and 2 sisters. In a noble turn of events, his rough upbringing gave him passion for police work in the hopes of making a difference, eventually working his way up to the rank of sergeant at the point where this story begins. He and his partner, Carla Valenti, begin this strange investigation on the night of an even stranger New York winter, where an ever-increasing polar vortex not only hinders their police work, but also eventually shuts down the city. While Tyler starts off being very upbeat towards the beginning of the story, the long hours on the job and the rapidly dropping temperature put great strains on him. He and Carla track down clues to this mystery, both as a team and in their separate narratives, sometimes with comical results. In his final appearance, Tyler is given the choice of staying in New York and continuing the investigation where the breakthrough is imminent, or to leave with his fiancée Samantha to Florida, effectively quitting his police career. Understandingly, Samantha objects to Tyler's career choice on the basis of the aforementioned nature of the case, along with the general inherent dangers that come with being a police officer. This causes Tyler to be conflicted, as he is equally committed to his job as he is her. The game leaves you with the choice between the two paths. Either way, it marks the last appearance of the detective. What makes him awesome as a parent? Tyler is the perfect example of taking a negative and turning it into a positive, especially if you take the Florida option. However, the chief example of his script flipping being the most obvious, as he was a disenfranchised child of the ghetto and arguably the epicenter of the worst epidemic that would plague a community such as his, both in proximity and time. And instead of his life resulting into, unfortunately, one of the few predictable outcomes, becoming one of the most polarizing figures of the modern era instead. Despite all of this, Tyler seemed like the type of police who would be able to reconcile the two spectrums that come with answering the call for someone like him. On the one hand, he wouldn't tolerate the ills that his community seems to enable. However, he would also stand up and demonstrate when a clear and apparent injustice on the people in his community was committed. Obviously, none of this character depth is fleshed out in the main story, but I would like to believe this. Given the sparse backstory found in my sources, this is exactly the type of person that he was. Still, what we do have in this story arc of this circa 7-hour game is a rich narrative that toggles between gravity, hilarity, palpability, and otherworldly, all of which is brought forth by the superior voice work of Well, to be fair, it really was a different time, where the merit of one's performance transcended the person playing the part. Nevertheless, veteran voice actor David Gassman, who was also the voice of the antagonist, Lucas Kane by the way, delivered a convincing performance, especially of an African-American man that was complex, nuanced, contained no trace of buffoonery, and above all, was respectful. However, if there were to have been a movie adaptation of this game, which for the record, there absolutely should have been, as it was a hot thing to do at the time, we all know who could have played Tyler, right? Case closed. Okay, so thanks for watching. As I now get back into the swing of things, I'm taking a request from one of the loyal viewers for the next video. To see your suggestion in a future video, take a cue from this in comments below. Suffice to say, I've effectively broken down the wall, and I'm back on it. The next video is underway, so keep it locked. In the meantime, if you like what you've seen, keep the love coming the best way you know how, by liking and sharing. Get more people to like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you know when I drop another nugget. And until then, stay awesome.